Hello, I'm Coach Eric, and today we're going to talk about the ABCs. Now, we're not going back to preschool to learn our letters. Instead, we're going to work on a mental coaching technique to make you mentally stronger that was developed by Dr. Hanson. Now, he's the author of many Coaching the Mental Game books, as well as founder of the Play Big Academy. And the ABCs are just what they sound like, a fundamental start to strengthening your mental game. So as you look at your worksheet and you work your way through it, what you're going to see is the Play Big ABCs broken down into act, breathing, and committed, or concentrating, depending on how you like to phrase it. But either way, those are your ABCs. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to think of a time when you were at your worst. I know, you don't want to think about when you're at your worst. But we're going to start there. This is the small you. This is the little you. How did you act? How did your body feel? How did it move? What was your posture like? Were you slump-shouldered? Were you hyperventilating? Did you have tears in your eyes? I've been there. Were you moving lethargic, slow, jagged, stumbling? Were you crazy and fast and spastic? Just think about how you were when you struggled and put that down in the A. Now let's look at B. How were you breathing? We talked about hyperventilating and act, but really go back to that moment. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself in that moment when you failed. How were you breathing? Were you breathing up high in your chest? Were you taking deep breaths? Did you feel a little sick? Put it down. How are you breathing? And then let's look at C. What were you committed to? What were you concentrating on while you were failing? Close your eyes, imagine it. Were you thinking to yourself, don't strike out, don't strike out, don't strike out, don't strike out, and then you struck out? Were you saying to yourself, don't hit this guy, don't walk this guy, don't throw the ball in the dirt to the backstop, don't commit an error? What were you focused on? Were you thinking about the coach who was yelling at you from the dugout? Or the player that was snickering behind you? Maybe you were worried about mom and dad in the stands, or the scout that was watching. What were the things that your mind was locked in on when you were struggling? Were you really focused on that error that you committed 2 innings ago instead of on the ball that's coming to you right now? That's a good fit. Put it in there. But don't just take my answers. I want you to really imagine this time and really come back to it. Give it a name. Call it something. It doesn't have to be super descriptive. It could just be the Bombers game. Doesn't matter. But understand that what you're addressing here is how did you act? How did you breathe? And what were you concentrating on? What were you committed to? Those are your ABCs. When you've completed that, as you move through the worksheet, we're going to do this again. You're going to close your eyes, take a good resting deep breath. Breathe out. Expel the little you, because we're done with him for now. We're going to talk about the big you. I want you to think about a time when you were really successful, when you had the world in your hands. I want a 10 out of 10 day, right? It can be a single at bat. It can be an entire game. Maybe it was a week where you just couldn't miss. Focus on that. How did you act? How did you move your body? How was your posture? Were you carrying yourself confident? Did you have your chest puffed up? Or were you slumped over like this? Were you moving quick, under control, fast? Looking at the B of ABCs, how were you breathing? Were you taking calming breaths? Were you under control? Were you hyperventilating even though you were succeeding? In case you don't know what that looks like. Did you breathe deep into your stomach? Were you breathing just on the top of your lungs? Did you feel it throughout your body? Or did you even notice your breathing? And then what were you committed to? What were you concentrating on in that moment? Did you have tunnel vision? Was it really, truly just you and the glove? Had you forgotten all the noise and the ball looked like it was coming in slow motion as you charged it? Maybe the ball looked like a beach ball coming in. Just the easiest thing to hit ever. There's no right or wrong answer to this, but it's important that you take a moment, really close your eyes and concentrate. Imagine yourself in that moment. Imagine yourself back in the game. And again, it can be whatever you want it to be. Game against the Athletics. Remember what it was like to be in that game. Were you thinking about your parents in the stands? Were you thinking about the mean coach? Were you thinking about the supportive coach? Were you thinking about the guy who maybe pokes you a little bit in the dugout? Or was all of that noise blocked out and it was just you and the task at hand? Be honest with yourself, because you're never going to be perfect. So maybe you were thinking a little about those things. That's all right. Put it in there, and we'll take a look at it as we move forward. This is, after all, a living document. Like all mental game exercises, there's no right or wrong answer, and it's going to change over time. And as you remember different facts and different things, worksheets like this can be redone. They can be added to. You can mark things out when you realize you've gotten past some of them. As we work forward, the ABCs are a building block. They're step one to becoming better. And you'll see at the end of the form, you'll have a chance to kind of grade yourself. You know, when you've done these things, what is it that you should do? What is it that you learned you shouldn't do? Where do you have to be the big you? And I want you to name that big you. Don't be afraid of it. I know you might be a little self-conscious about that, but name it. Who are you when you're your big you? I appreciate you taking the time to think about this and to work your ABCs. This is a core fundamental practice of Play Big Academy, and it's a big part of the mental game and getting better at your skills. So take a moment, work through the worksheet, and help me, help you, help me.